This is Envision Self-Healing Podcast, episode number 44. Hi, I'm Will Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
And we are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated in helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands. The topic of the week this week is 5 Steps to a Successful New Year's Resolution, Part 2, Making It Measurable. And in the second half of the podcast, we're going to be answering a question, a simple question that asks, can I get my vision back to 2020?
So Richard, how's the world of self-healing been treating you this week?
Well, it's been, I think a while back I talked about the need for...
Speed?
What's
that? It's a movie.
Yeah. The need for me to get better circulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had trouble going ahead with that, shall we say.
Why did you want better circulation?
Right, for my optic atrophy. This goes back to when we were in Brazil. There was one of the women teaching there was telling us about a client of hers who had, I can't remember the condition now, but it was something like optic atrophy.
It was glaucoma.
It was a glaucoma? Okay. That has to do with circulation and how this client went on a swimming binge, essentially, and began to exercise mainly with swimming as a way of improving circulation. And it turned around her prognosis because she was in danger of needing surgery for the glaucoma. So
she had the glaucoma had created blind spots in her central vision, I think,
right,
as well as her periphery. And through the exercise, they could physically observe that the optic nerve had regenerated and that she could now see through those.
And I think they were going to put in shunts or whatever they do for that. Don't they put in something?
They were going to drill a hole to reduce the pressure.
That's right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything they were going to do for the blind spots.
No, exactly. But they were feeling pressed to do the surgery to keep more blind spots from forming, basically, for the pressure. So, yes. Okay, that was the instigation of having optic atrophy, which is, again, very related to blood circulation, that I should be doing a similar thing. And then I remodeled my house and so
that raised your blood pressure, but it didn't improve the circulation.
No, it didn't help my circulation at all. It improved the circulation from my bank account to my contractor's bank account. That was flowing very nicely.
Yeah.
So, so this week, and the other thing that I think one of the differences between you and me is that I prefer to do things... I'm less self-motivated, shall we say. Mm-hmm. So I've learned that it helps me to have someone else to do things
with. It for you.
Yeah, that would be good. Which is why I have my morning exercise meditation session with my friend on Skype. That's why that works for me.
Yeah.
So this week it was a woman friend who has invited me to go to spin classes with her.
Okay.
And that was motivating.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I've started. Went to my first spin class this morning, and by the time you came over, I had recovered a little, but I was moaning and groaning on before you got here. So that was definitely going on. But right now, I'm feeling okay, actually.
Good.
Yeah. So
your recovery's pretty good.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you that there is something called DOMS, which stands for delayed onset muscle soreness. So
okay.
Not for one to turn you into a hypochondriac and have you look towards getting muscle pain, but it normally takes 1 or 2 days for the.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, and if you are sore the first day, that's a really bad sign, right? That it's going to be really sore the second or third day.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
So I did that this morning, 45 minutes of spinning and
Excellent.
TRX. So that's my plan now, is to be motivated by going to spin classes.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, obviously I'm quite a self-motivated person, but for me, eventually I found that I started moving away from going to the gym and sitting and doing the machines for an hour or two. Mm-hmm. And I started doing classes like spin class and yoga and body balance classes, just because I found it a lot more motivating doing it as a group.
Right. Okay.
And also having somebody there that if I wasn't there that week, I knew the following week they were like, oh, where were you?
Right.
On Tuesday or whatever. And having that, once you build that rapport and that community, we've talked about this before, about one of the biggest challenges vision improvement people face is they can't just pop down the road and go to an eye gym and meet with their eye instructor and have a group of people doing eye exercises as much as we encourage people. And that's why we're working so hard to get people on the Facebook fan page and getting a community going online with us. But just having that group there that is also going to motivate you and get you going, and especially if you have somebody with you.
Especially if she's very good looking. So.
Well, you meant not going to be looking at her when you're spinning.
Oh, right. Oh, which reminds me that this same place, the spin class, they do have pole dancing. So
Okay.
What do you think of me taking up pole dancing?
I think that would be fantastic. I think that would definitely put some of those pictures up on our Facebook fan page.
Yeah, I think the other... I doubt there's a lot of men in the pole dancing class, so they might actually object to me being there, watching them do pole dancing. But anyway.
Just say that you can't see them, you'll be fine.
Well, that's true.
Just don't tell them you're doing eye exercises.
And it might not be as aerobically good as the spin class anyway.
No,
so.
but I bet your heart rate would go up.
It would. Oh, which reminds me. Okay, this gets back to our goal setting, which is what we've been talking about in our podcast. And I talked about this earlier with you, privately. I haven't decided what kind of goal to set, but I've begun talking to you from your physical education background of setting goals of resting heart rate, recovery rate, and maximum heart rate. So I'll do a little more research on that, but I want to set a goal for the year of raising my maximum heart rate from what we figured this morning of somewhere between 100 to 130 for my age.
Well, we could certainly talk about that in the topic. Maybe it would be good to use that as an example.
Oh, good.
A nice, easy one for people to relate with.
Great.
And thinking about it, I was just thinking, well, it's a good idea for me to come up with a goal, I guess, as well.
Yeah, it would be
as an example for people. But as kind of ironic, really, as we always seem to notice when we do these talks, that one thing I noticed this week is that I was writing for our coaching call, the free coaching call that we do,
right?
To help people out with their eye exercises. Is I was writing up a template for people that we could send out, so it's easier for them to be able to answer questions, and also a bit more detail in it so that we can answer the questions that much better.
Right.
And one of them I chose and put on there was lifestyle. And I was trying to then come up with genres of how someone could roughly tell us what their lifestyle is like.
Right.
And I had very active, moderately active, and inactive.
I kind of know where you're going here now.
And then I also have categories of very healthy, moderate healthy, and unhealthy. So I was writing these from my 15 odd years of physical education, knowledge of what what a very active person would be, moderately active. And I started to realize that I was actually towards the inactive side. And I was like, wow, this is...
But he's doing it for a very good cause. He's doing it for you guys. Just think of it that way. You're sacrificing your body for all these folks. So,
but it's so ironically, I'm sitting there at the computer writing about what someone else should be doing, and I'm not doing it because I'm writing it.
Right.
But that motivated me as well. I mean, I sort of had this goal in mind this year anyway. To do more exercise. And I thought, because I know we talk about on the website about light exercise, and that you do your light exercise every day and you should do at least 30 minutes and that you will keep healthy. And that doesn't mean spin class. That means, walking, doing household chores, washing up, doing the gardening, like anything sort of active. And so all this time I thought, I'm okay, I sort of do my walk. But then I realized I was sort of defining to be very active, and that is obviously I put there that once or twice a week to do an activity that pushes your heart rate to between 65 and 80% of your maximum heart rate, which is what we would call cardiovascular exercise. And I can't remember the last time that I did that.
It's true.
So that's certainly something I need to work on myself. And
well, we could combine this because there's a gym in between us that we could meet at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could just run there.
That's true.
You could do that, and I'll run back again. Meet you there. Make sure you're in the class, and then I'll run off.
Yeah.
And that would be my exercise.
Or we could do pole dancing together.
We could. We should save that for a podcast. We'll definitely make that a video one.
Yeah.
Video podcast. So no, it was interesting. And we talked before when we did a podcast on teaching an old dog new tricks, and we talked about how as teachers we're always continuously learning, and a good teacher is always continuously learning. And it's great when you're writing this sort of material and you think, well, I'm not actually doing what I should be doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is with the conditions we have. It's already, there's a fair amount on your plate already.
Yeah.
But there's always room on your plate. So
finding that balance.
Yeah.
But of course, you could see that as, I guess, an eye exercise in itself.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, I think it's a good time to move on to topic of the week.
And the topic of the week this week is 5 Steps to a Successful New Year's Resolution, Part 2, Making It Measurable. And
I think this is now a good time to stick in some of our own examples of what we were talking about here for ourselves, but a little bit behind why you need it to be measurable. And this is obviously so that you can see the result at the end of the year. Now, this is a lot more difficult for us, and we've been debating over the last few days here. We've been looking at some questions on the scientific approach to vision improvement and how it's a challenge because of the scientific model is not really geared towards that sort of vision improvement, because it can come down to your perception and how you're seeing it, and also, you know, all the rest that entails. So it's a little bit more difficult to be measurable in some of our conditions. It's obviously easier in others. For example, with myopia, it could be to read an extra line on the chart by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, myopia, you could do acuity would be a very simple thing.
Yeah.
But then you could also incorporate dropping a diopter when you go to the optometrist. That's a little riskier, but it's still doable. So that's another way of measuring it. Yeah.
So when we say measurable, then it's, I guess you would say it's a number, something that you can quantify, so that you can then replicate it. Another thing is the ability to be able to replicate the same test at the end of the year, and then to see that you've actually seen those improvements on paper.
Right, and I guess it doesn't have to be a number, but it could be like in terms of the peripheral vision, like your peripheral field. It could be a chart where you circle what you can't see and what you can see in the periphery, and then you have that as a piece of paper that you compare to another piece of paper where you perform the same test. Yeah,
and if you're somebody, say you've got a macular degeneration or a particular scotoma or blind spot that you're working on, then you could get the Ansel chart that we've, or just draw lots of lines like a grid on a piece of paper, and then as you look at it, you can draw out, make sure you measure the distance where you are to the page, draw the blind spot, and then that's your measurement to then go back and draw it again in a year's time. So this also helps us make it a little bit more realistic when we want to measure it, which is what we'll talk about later on in the next few podcasts there. But making sure that it's measurable, some sort of number or some sort of thing that allows you to compare to something else. If you have trouble reading near, then you could use the large and small print that you can find in the resources section on our website, a free chart there. And if you have trouble looking in the distance, then you could always use the 10-foot chart that we've also got. Yeah,
if you can't think of any other, if some other measurement doesn't come immediately to you, you can always go back to acuity and reading the charts, the eye charts. But we would caution you to just always focus on that, because there could be something more, a measurement that's more appropriate to your condition as well. So,
and it's important to point out here, and the reason why I say this is actually going to be my goal, and that it doesn't necessarily, the goal doesn't have to be that a particular improvement. For example, my goal this year is going to be to do an hour and a half of eye exercises every morning. So that's something measurable.
Yeah.
It's an hour and a half. And my aim is to do that every day. Now, obviously, that's myself that I'm working towards. For you, it could be 40 minutes, it could be 20 minutes.
Right.
But it's a measurable thing that you can then see at the end of the year if you've achieved that goal by doing that amount of time.
Well, and that you've just set a goal. It's just there's different styles of those kind of what's measurable. And for you, just putting in the effort, and it's a quantity, is enough of an effort. You're not going to put more pressure on yourself and say, well, I have to see this more in my periphery, or my acuity should jump this much in the periphery, or something that could put too much pressure on you, really. And if you do those hour and a half of exercises, you're going to see those improvements anyway.
And also, there's things like eye strain. How do you measure eye strain? Very difficult, but it's something very real. It's something that I feel if I don't do my exercises on a regular basis. So it's a little bit more of a challenge for us in vision improvement to do this, but it is possible. I guess it involves some sort of creativeness as well, and also being realistic, which is what we'll talk about later on. But a good example for yourself when you're talking about your exercise is that you would measure maybe your resting heart rate. As if you have a good resting heart rate, that's a sign of good fitness.
Right.
So we could take your resting heart rate now, and then we can measure it again in a year's time, and if your resting heart rate is improved, then we know your fitness has improved as well. So I guess within that, with the measuring, you want to do the same procedure again. So you would make sure that, say, you were sitting down for 5 minutes before we did the test. We took your heart rate, we counted we put a heart rate monitor on, and we watched it for 60 seconds, and then we took the average or whatever that your heart rate was during that time. So it's replicable again, and it's also a fair measurement, and it's the same thing. So when you go to test it in a year's time, it's exactly the same.
So do you think I should actually come up with a number as my goal, or should I just be, I want to improve that?
Yeah, well, and I guess this is something that we were also talking before. You need a base measurement first. Like, there's no point. Richard could say, "Oh, I want my resting heart rate to be 60."
Right,
which is
which is
a marathon runner's heart. A top athlete. You're looking at being around that range. So he could just say that, and again, like we say, that's not very realistic. I mean, no offense, it's not really realistic.
No, it isn't.
And it's also dangerous. Like, for you to try and reach that, you'd probably kill yourself. In order to get to that stage. So you need a base measurement where you are now. So you want to go and measure your. So your goal is to improve a line on the eye chart. Then you want to read the chart first. Say you get down to the 20/50 line, and then your goal is to then be at the 20/40 line at the end. Now, obviously, you can take increments. It doesn't have to be the whole line. Maybe it could be, I want to read 4 letters on that line, which is obviously a more realistic and easier goal. But you've measured it beforehand. So for you would need to measure your basic heart rate first, and then make a decision on where you want to be from that. But I guess that's kind of the next step. But
that's a process.
But the idea is that instead of just saying my goal is to improve my eyesight, well, how do you measure that? How do you measure improve my eyesight? There has to be this, and this is before why we talked about last week's episode. We talked about being specific. Remember, this is the smart approach to setting a goal. So before, it was be specific. So instead of just saying I want to improve my eyesight, well, that can be difficult to measure. You need an aspect of vision in order for you to test, and then this is where we're now talking about the measurable side. So make sure that whatever it is that you were specific about, you can measure it. For example, I was saying that it could be difficult to measure my eye strain. One thing, I guess, could be if I work on the computer for an hour And at the moment, if I work on the computer for 2 hours without eye exercises, I get eye strain. So maybe my goal would be to work on the computer for 3 hours without getting eye strain. Again, it's measurable. So you have to be somewhat creative. But some things can be difficult to measure.
Yeah.
So certainly that's the second step there then on our SMART approach. The first one is to be specific, and then the second is to make it measurable. Okay, great. Well, I think it's a good time to move on to question of the week.
And the question of the week this week comes from YouTube, and it's someone who's asking the very simple question of, can I get my vision back to 2020? And this person also fills in some of the details, and they have a minus 2.5 in one eye and a minus 0.5 in the other eye. And we get this question a lot, but we'd like to talk about it again because it brings up a lot of issues.
Yeah,
so.
A lot of the time we're pleased because at least this individual has given us some more details.
Yeah.
A lot of the time the question is, can I get my vision to 2020?
Right.
And just like what we were talking about, the goal setting, where you need to be specific. We were talking before about having something measurable, getting to 2020. What is it that's going to get you to that 2020?
And now we have the baseline, like we were talking about. This is the baseline is minus 2.5. And so this is a later step, but at least we can set a goal, a specific goal, because we know the baseline. And we can maybe come up with a measurable goal. Gosh, I'm going back to the topic, aren't I? But so this person, their goal they're setting is, I want 2020 vision. And at least they've given us a baseline now, so we can make some evaluation.
And I guess the question is, why 2020? Why is it that people always go for this number? I think mainly in two parts. One is that when you see a lot of these, get 2020 vision in 2 weeks. LASIK surgery is return your vision to 2020 in 15 minutes.
Yeah, right.
But you'll be blind.
Yeah, you might be blind, but you could not be.
But for 5 minutes, you have 2020 vision. No, we're not that cynical.
No, we're not.
Well, a little bit. So the other side of it also is that when you have your eyes tested, it's to that 2020 mark. That is what Dr. Schnellen came up with when he created the Schnellen chart, that this is the standard of vision is 2020. I mean, I like to think the vision should be 2015, 2010. And that, even work yourself beyond that 2020. But the idea then is to try and generalize, so that we can generalize the general public. So we can say, you have good vision, you have 2020, you have bad vision, you have 2030, and you should be at this 2020.
Right. And there's so many issues here, but one of the things that occurs to me is that as soon as you say, I have to have 2020 vision, you've kind of, and part of the process that we would talk about is, part of the process of getting to 2020, ironically, is becoming comfortable with 2040 or 2030 and not wearing your glasses and not being so obsessed with it has to be razor sharp.
Not straining the eyes.
Yeah, it's part of the pathway back to 2020. So if you're so focused on 20, that's been our experience, is people who are so focused on it can't ever take off their glasses.
And also, we were actually talking about this in our coaching call this week. It was great. One of our callers, who is obviously really starting to work himself into the vision improvement programs, and he's starting to think of the philosophy behind vision. And he noticed that how his personality was also connected to his vision condition. And if somebody is so goal orientated that I must get to 2020 vision at all costs, then that probably that mentality of just work through regardless of health and regardless of my vision is probably what got them in the position of trying to get back to 2020.
Yeah.
So it's really thinking around the subject and not just being this is it. And I guess if you think about the whole being specific and measurable, is that if you're aiming for that 2020, well, that means you're only really going to work on that one particular aspect.
Right.
And don't forget, vision improvement is a holistic approach. It's not just about working that structure of the eye that would get you to that 2020 mark. It's also the knowledge of relaxation and how the eye functions best under being relaxed, and the eye strain is a big contributor eye strain, and to poorer vision. So it's always a bigger question when it comes down to 2020. And certainly if I was the individual, I'd ask myself, why do I want 2020 vision? What is it that really makes me want to have that?
Yeah, and I guess if we wanted to answer this more simply, and we have answered it this way before, we would say, well, you could drop half a diopter every 6 months, potentially a diopter every year. So if this person has 2.5, you could do the math. It could take 2.5 years if he worked really hard to correct that one eye, and the other eye at 0.5 would correct relatively quickly. Say half a year to a year. We could answer it that way, and maybe that's the answer they want. But there's a deeper answer, which is what we're talking about. And you need to relax to get there. So,
and we find this really important because this really is, I guess, our approach here is we're talking about vision improvement holistically. It's not about just doing a couple of eye exercises and getting 20 vision, and we're not about just trying to sell people a quick fix. That's not been our own experience. That's not how we work with our clients. And that's why instead of just jumping on the bandwagon and going, you can improve your vision to 2020 and just do these exercises for 1 year, it's just, that's really not our approach. We don't want to be that kind of way, because also think of it, it's not just about him improving to 2020. It's also, like, say this individual, let's say he's 15 or 16 years old, there's still opportunity to the vision to deteriorate. If this individual keeps following their visual pattern, which is working from near a lot and not doing the eye exercises and not resting the eye. So the question then becomes of, can I get to 2020 if I'm minus 0.5 and minus 2.25? Well, we would also say, well, you're working towards that, but you also want to make sure that in 5 years' time, you're not minus 4.25 and minus 2 in the other eye. And very few people think about this. They're so focused on just improve, which is great. Obviously you want to have that motivation to improve in the first place. We're not saying that's wrong, but we're trying to thinking around the subject. Don't just think of it as, I go to the eye doctor, I see the 20/40 line, but when he puts glasses on, I see the 20/20 line. So that's the fix. So with the eye exercises, I see the 20/40, I want to see the 20/20, where's my fix? And unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. But certainly, if this individual focuses on the exercises, works at it diligently, then there's no reason, if myopia is the only issue here, that they shouldn't be getting to 20/20 vision.
Agreed.
Okay, great. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. If you want to find out a little bit more information on vision improvement or indeed self-healing in general, then head over to our website, www.envisionselfhealing.com. You can also head over to our Facebook fan page where you can catch up on some pictures and tips that Richard and I have got going on there. And we also release tips out on our Twitter accounts as well, so you can also check that out. If you want to get some real basic information, we've put into a nice little ebook that you can get your hands on our website. So just head over there and you'll see how to do that. And if you enjoyed the coaching, the question of the week, then you can also check out our coaching calls. Just head over to the Eye Exercise Express and you'll see more information over there, how you can actually get access to the coaching calls that we do every 2 weeks. Okay, great. Well, we hope you enjoy this week's episode. Good luck with your exercises this week and happy healing.
And have a good week.